You know, Charles, I couldn't come up with any parasitic theme music.
That's quite all right, Jason.
How are you today?
I'm great, and I hope you're well. This is just, I mean, let me just start off by saying that this is outstanding. This is really, you know, you've way outdone yourself here. I mean, this is, of course, a takeoff. I was going to say aping, but this is basically riffing off the Parasite movie, which won Best Picture.
Right.
But you've captured the spirit of this cabal here. I mean, you've got Chelsea Clinton standing next to Elizabeth Warren's house, and you've got Hillary Clinton, you know, holding a big piece of shit.
I thought that was a casserole she was making.
Well, I don't know. I'm just she doesn't look very happy there. She's baked a big cookie, something she said she wasn't going to stay home and do. And that lovable face. And then you've got Bill Clinton with his, the famous look. I mean, it just works perfectly over there to the right. And on top of, then on the bottom, of course, you've got the two Obamas who have taken lounge lizarding to new depths. I mean, you think about the degree to which people live high following the presidency. I mean,
but they didn't inhale.
Exactly. But I mean, some of the vacations were just so outlandish that they went on. And I'm sorry, I don't think that you earn the right as the president for all the sacrifice you and your family make to suddenly live as if you're Bill Gates buying nearly $1 billion in theory hydrogen-powered yacht just because you were the president of the United States. That's not right. I much prefer what I believe was the case of Harry Truman, who
diesel power.
No, Harry Truman left the White House. I think he drove back to Missouri and went around looking for jobs, looking for work. You know, I mean, I really think that's the truth.
Beat it, deadbeat.
Well, no, it's just, I mean, you shouldn't be, if everybody knows the game is that the president is on the make and the president's family is available to bribe, then you end up with what we have. And it's not good. It really is not good, particularly when you have, you know, it's very easy to say that because I'm a public servant, I've sacrificed for you. But that's not really true in the case of a lot of these people. They're not sacrificed. I'd say in the case of Donald Trump, it is true. He's not, after all, not taking a salary and, suffering all kinds of financial penalties for being president of the United States. But in the case of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton, who, by their own admission, the family was over $10 million in debt when it left the White House January 20th, 2001. And now who knows how much money these Clintoons have around the world. It's none of this is legitimate. It just isn't.
You know, Charles, Joanne 1520 is following us here in the comments, and she's cracked the case. She says that Hillary is carrying a pound of weed. So I think that's right.
Could be more than a pound, probably.
Yeah, well, it looks heavy.
Yeah, to give to who, I wonder.
Obviously, Bubba.
Yeah.
Oh, he's more of a blowhound from what we've heard.
I would guess, yes. I'm not going to take that one, touch that one. But honestly, this poster is fantastic, Jason, and I hear rumors from scuttlebutt from your staff that, you know, maybe we will get this project of a book moving at some point.
Yeah, I've been looking into some of the, the one-off printing things for books, and I don't know that there's a way for me to get it into a book that would arrive to people at a normal kind of competitive book price. But I'm thinking that if we can do them printed one at a time and make it like a free gift to high-level sponsors, people who go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, maybe I can make it a reward. Robert Roberts tells us that cannabis is medicine. That's true. There was a story that Robin Gritz had just posted on Facebook about some family where the parents, they had a 2-year-old child that got taken away from them because they were smoking weed, and the foster parents killed the baby. And
oh,
they're
lovely.
Now facing life in prison.
Yes.
So that was bad. I think there's probably a lot of people who drink wine and have a 2-year-old baby and don't get it taken away. So We'll
you know,
see.
without getting precisely into it, well, all sorts of mishaps can happen when you have too much of this stuff around with children or with elderly people or sick people, et cetera. But this is, I mean, well, getting back to the main point of this presentation today, which we will try to keep to 90 minutes, when we think of these presidential charities, maybe we could go to the first page of the presentation. When you go back into the legislation, and one of our close mutual friends, yours and mine, has a lot more experience, he is a lawyer and has a lot more experience therefore with the law and with legislation. And for those people who are new to this, trying to understand how you think about the motivations for the different laws that come into existence in this country, in almost every case, there is what's called a legislative history that accompanies the passage of any significant bill in the United States of America. And when you go back and you read the legislative histories, both for the Presidential Libraries Act of 1955 and then the amendment in 1986, you realize that the original thinking here was back in 1955, America had been around for almost 200 years, so there were quite a few presidents already up and running. And some people started saying, you know, what the hell do we need all these libraries for? I mean, you know, this is even before there was a carbon crisis, when we were flaring gas at wells, and and the price of oil and gas was so low. People started to say, you know, these presidents are creating a lot of materials or records they create or receive. Is there a way, rather than having the government suffer the burden of paying for a new library and then paying for its maintenance, is there some deal we can cut where we can get private citizens to fund the construction cost of these facilities if we really need to have them, and thereby relieve the National Archives of the burden of paying people to, well, first of all, coming up with the money for the building, and then secondly, maintaining it and having staffs present. So the benefit of the bargain back in 1955 was, on the one hand, you know, this is going to save money for the federal government. We'll give a tax deduction to the donors who put money to put these structures up and running, provided that the actual entities are in fact lawfully organized and operated charities. The idea was not to create a slush fund hiding in plain sight so that individual presidents could be sure to have a retirement fund for them and for their families forever after. That is absolutely not the idea behind this. And centrally, when you go into the legislative history, a key facet and control was that the form these libraries were supposed to take was what's called a public charity, not a private foundation. And public charities, by law and regulation, normally, if we didn't have a crooked IRS in the past, are entities that must be controlled and representative of the general public. They can't be controlled by a family. They certainly can't be used to generate speech income and book deals and other investment opportunities, or as campaign backdrops for the Clinton family only, or to have, you know, a post-presidential penthouse retreat where you could chase topless interns around a swimming pool looking out over Little Rock. I mean, that's not what this was supposed to be. And it's very clear when you read the legislation. You don't have to have, you know, a huge debate with Bill Clinton, who would challenge you on what the meaning of the word is to understand what this is supposed to be. It's not. The Clinton Foundation is straight up not compliant with the original intent of what presidential libraries are supposed to be. And then you turn your attention to the Barack Obama fictional library, which started out saying, you know, we're going to do all this stuff and comply with the act.
Why
and
is
then,
it fictional?
Well, when they got challenged, you know, on how come you're not doing this, and how come you're not doing that, and how come nothing's built, and what's going on here, they said, oh, we're going to step into the 21st century, in so many words. What we're going to do is we're going to be a presidential library that will not house any records created or received during the Obama presidency. Get it? It's
Well,
like,
he
wait a
just
minute.
wants it to be like the Obama Museum of
Right.
what?
Of the religion of Obama. I mean, it's like, it's ridiculous. And the point here is that this is the second you go and you say, look, my objectives or my purposes, as stated in my articles of incorporation, are to create a presidential library that will not comply with the law. You would think somebody in the IRS would say, you know what, that doesn't sound like it complies with the law. Why don't I call the Department of Justice and wind this shit down. And of course, that doesn't happen because there are all kinds of Obama, Clinton, Bush holdovers lodged within the IRS, lodged within the Department of Justice, certainly populating Illinois, where this Obama presidential library is supposedly going to come into existence at one point.
Now wait a minute, Charles. They're already showing this as the Obama Foundation here in the middle of Chicago. I guess you know about that already.
Of course.
This is the office building that they're talking about.
Yeah, but you see, this is the whole point of what I'm saying with this legislative history. What you have to follow, normally, until really Bill Clinton, normally what you would do is you would actually follow the letter of the law. You go and you'd say, all right, what does the federal law say? It says, well, all right, I've got to file articles of incorporation, and I should probably have bylaws done at the same time. Why don't I pick a state to do that? So where did they do it? They did it in Washington, D.C. at first. And who knows whether they actually complied with Washington, D.C. laws, because you'll never get into the barrel of that. Even if you sent the same team that rousted Roger Stone out of his house in Florida down to this Obama Foundation, you probably never get the records, the original filings in Washington, D.C., because those are up in smoke, as far as I would guess. And then, when did this thing actually register in Illinois? Did it do so truthfully? When did it come together and have bylaws? How do you explain that the people on the board of this Obama Foundation are all Obama Democratic hacks or relatives? His half-sister is on the board of the damn thing. I mean, so it's so far away from being a public charity, but it's operating in Illinois, where, Illinois happens its own way.
He should make Blavoyevich part of the thing.
He probably will.
Is he still in jail?
He certainly is, for many more years.
Oh, boy. Well.
So that's why I say these presidential charities have become parasitical. I mean, when we think back prior to the internets, when those came together in 1994, I believe it was, for the general public, libraries served a different function. I mean, they really served a valuable function because there was no way to access books electronically. But the second you make the internet as powerful and computers as powerful as they are today, calls into question whether you should still heat and cool these gigantic buildings all over the world to house books in the same way. You should probably do it for really valuable books you don't want to lose in case for some reason there's, the internet would, I don't know what, I doubt it'll disappear. But you really have to call into question exactly why do we need old school libraries. And then you have to ask yourself, I mean,
where else would homeless people read the newspaper?
I actually like to use libraries myself, but I take it's actually sad the degree to which you go into these libraries.
In New York,
in the nice ones, and you see people who. I mean, it's not like New York City is Mogadishu, where there's no health department, there's no city budget, there's no whatever, there's no toilets or water. I mean, there's all that stuff is here in abundance. And inside these libraries, what you see, sadly, and I go to various and sundry ones frequently, you see the same sad sack cases. Many, I try not to sit next to the ones who scratch their legs or have bugs flying all over them, but...
Coronavirus, Charles. Well, in all seriousness, I don't mean to be insensitive to people who suffer from homelessness, but people who are living in squalor and then interacting with the public, it does spread diseases. I mean, this is why I say, I don't understand why we're sending $1 billion to Ukraine so Joe Biden and his crackhead son can steal it when there's people living in squalor and filth and their own health deteriorating and interacting with the public and spreading diseases.
I think, since you bring it up, I think it's an excellent point, and we'll get to different facets, but I think you're going to find as the campaign unfolds, Donald Trump making that case. And going to the inner cities across this country and saying, listen, here's what I see here, and I've got this request on my desk to go, come up with some ridiculous aquarium in Botswana or something like that. I'm not doing that. I'm going to put the money right here in Toledo or Scranton or Poughkeepsie or whatever. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
Well, the Botswana aquarium is a valuable resource as well.
Exactly.
Do they have any fish in Botswana? People be fishing at the aquarium.
But anyway, so back on this whole question of presidential records, I am, as I think the viewership knows, pretty cynical. I doubt that all of the presidential records created or received from January 20th, 1993 forward are actually inside the libraries of the presidents where they should be inside. I think there have been a lot of records that were electronic, a lot of drafts, a lot of paper stuff that is incriminating, that has been bleeding, and not simply by the Clintons. I think, you know, by H.W. Bush, by W. Bush, certainly by the Obama team, who knows, by Trump eventually. And you've been to these National Archive buildings. I've been long ago. I mean, they read you the riot act about...
Make you watch a whole film.
Yeah, touching a
record.
Not
to steal anything, and it's a federal offense, and you will get totally smashed.
But in the case of these presidents, you know, when you're sitting on top of the pile, the first question, like with the Clinton Foundation, is how many records actually got created in the first place? And if you have a gigantic pile over here, and then you've got a team of people whose job it is, you know, to protect you from getting embarrassed or worse prosecuted, looking through all the records and deciding which of the official records should go into the official record. Now that's a process, I think, of going back into the provenance of all these records is something that really has to be done.
Sorry about that, Charles. We had a little bit of a problem there that required total restart. We're still live.
Oh,
this is working, but your presentation is a bit stopped while we wait for this to restart. There are a litany of problems that come up as a result of the surprisingly complex nature of what we're doing here, and we're going to have a lot of people in the audience with a lot of suggestions for what's going on, but this is like diagnosing a patient over the telephone.
We should get that Yale psychiatrist to help us out.
Yale psychiatrist?
You know, the Yale psychiatrist who's suggested that she and a bunch of other psychiatrists have determined that Donald Trump is, you know, is not capable of continuing to hold office.
Certainly any legitimate doctor would tell you that no legitimate doctor would diagnose someone who they haven't personally evaluated in their own office.
Yeah, of course.
And it's actually totally medically irresponsible to do that. What is going on?
Blackout.
I don't know, Charles.
It's unusual.
Yeah, isn't it?
The countermeasures have started.
Okay. I think any legitimate doctor would tell you that it is totally illegitimate, and anyone who would come on TV purporting to be a doctor and give a diagnosis, particularly in the field of psychiatry, that's got to be the worst possible thing you could do as a psychiatrist.
Well, I think what's happened is that, you know, this is a subject of another presentation on a different set of topics, but I think the Saul Alinsky pukes, frankly, going all the way back to whatever years they started operating, did figure out that if they're prepared to break the rules, they could count on the opposition to respect the rules, and they could get into power faster than the opponents, the white hats, I would argue, could stop them from having the major negative impact that they have had, getting inside many, not only social media, but academia, existing media, and the regulators, the state houses, the courtrooms, et cetera, judges. And you know, these are people who have done such a disservice to current and future generations. I think, for example, of that Professor Gruber, that idiot, you know, who was the intellectual firepower behind Obamacare, who got caught on tape saying, you know, the American public's really stupid, and that's why we could never sell this plan if we told them what we were really going to do, but the American public is stupid, and I have a 67-page resume from MIT to prove it. You know, I mean, it's...
All right, so there we go.
We're back in?
Yeah.
We could jump to the next page, I think. It's okay?
Yep.
So for the new viewers, and just a quick second, that this approach, what we're trying to do here is to use these considerable tools that get ever stronger, thanks to you, Jason. You're reinvesting constantly in this. And so the machinery gets more powerful and technology advances. We're now able...
breaks faster.
But we're now able to do things that we couldn't do, frankly, in June 2017 when we started on this project together. And the approach we try to take here is not simply to give you the answer. And I get comments from people, they really enjoy the fact that it's a back and forth. And we try to give you food for thought. And that's why we have married up this idea of doing video presentations and now audio podcasting, as well with these board presentations. And Jason, maybe you could explain how people could get these board presentations.
Yeah, well, it's ironic because I forgot to start the podcast thing, so that's going to have to be happening after the fact. But the playlist, of course, that many people have seen, which contains all of the episodes of Sunday with Charles, as well as Charles Ortel is closing in. The playlist is available on the Jason Goodman YouTube channel, which is unfortunately not at its full capacity due to malicious strikes from social engineers who've announced their intent to destroy Crowdsource the Truth. But people can still go there and access the playlist. You're watching the live stream right now on Crowdsource the Truth 2, which is the backup YouTube channel. Charles, today is our 208th video, and just the playlist, that's the catalog of all the videos, has been viewed 35,000 times. People can choose any one of these and dive in. They're going to be basically overwhelmed with a litany of evidence. They can send it to James Comey or William Barr or any of the other current or former members of the Department of Justice, which will undoubtedly use it to do nothing. But you can also come in here, click on the video description, and there's almost always going to be a link that says download Charles's presentation. You click on that, and it's going to give you this PDF document, which you can read on screen and follow along. You got the standard download icon up in the corner that allows you to save it to your computer, print it out, make paper airplanes out of it. You could go to Washington, D.C. and fly them around and hope that somebody finds it in the street. And that would be a better investigation than what they've been doing so far.
Good. Well, so people are free to make constructive suggestions. They can reach me through my website, and they can reach Jason or me through our Twitter. As I say, I do try to respond to short suggestions. I cannot read from people I don't know, 25 pages on this or that.
Doesn't stop them from commenting, Charles.
I know, but I'm just letting people know who might send me the 25 pages. Much better to send me something less than 250 words, and then I do engage. And I want to thank the many people who have come forward, and not simply to talk or ask questions or make suggestions, but have come forward and said, I want to do something about this. I want to help trigger investigations around the world or in different American states or localities. And that's been going on now, ever since June 2017. More and more people have been getting into the act. I really do appreciate particularly those who spent long hours reporting many different parts of this charity fraud to many different authorities, including those that I think the Clintons are eventually going to be extremely surprised to learn how they have already been attacked. And it's not just the Clintons, it's major donors to these frauds, it's the accounting firms, it's the law firms, it's the trustees, indeed it's the IRS itself, and others who have corruptly impeded investigations of these massive charity frauds. So with that, we have on Sunday, we talked about my article in the American Thinker, and now here in the first link is additional work brought to you by the great Ekaterina Blainova in Sputnik. And this is part of a long series that she and I have done together going back to, I think, May of 2016. On Sputnik, there are a number of people like Ekaterina who are opinion contributors. Who I think that's her technical title. And what she has been doing with me is she'll notice something, she'll send me a list of questions, I'll try to answer it, and then she weaves together pieces like this. Now we've done pieces, many pieces on the Clinton and Obama and Soros charity frauds. We've also done pieces on other topics. So when you go into the Sputnik Index and put my name, you'll find that I think there's well over 100 stories in here. And they're all done more or less the same way, where I'll make comments and then there'll be links that you can go and read here. And the reason I felt very comfortable doing this, notwithstanding the reflexive accusations that come from anybody who's threatened by the exercise of exposing this fraud. Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia is a country that today has about 150 million people, many of whom are highly educated.
They're very smart.
Who would love to, those who are there, would love to get more engaged, I think, in the global economy. They like to see a better lifestyle. They have much to gain, they have much to contribute. And you know, it's more than a bit ironic that people like Bernie Sanders, who didn't he get married on his honeymoon,
I think,
in the Soviet Union at a time when that certainly wasn't cool.
Yeah, like why would you do that? I mean, I could understand going to Moscow nowadays, but when did Bernie Sanders get married? In like the 60s or the 70s?
1860s. But I mean, the point is, the very same people who were all in for Marx, all in for communism and socialism, and all in for Russia when there was a Soviet Union, are now the first thing when they want to blame somebody, it's Russia, 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 Russia. And I thought, actually, a great big opportunity has been created, which Katya confirms, that people are reluctant to appear on Russian media, which means, you know, Russia is not really hearing from people here in the United States who might know the truth. The truth. Instead, you get wingnuts from CNN and MSNBC and others spouting crap over there, which is not, you know, it's to be expected. So a big opportunity was created for people like me, and that let me speak on multiple Russian platforms, which I have been doing now for 4 or 5 years. And I hope actually will end up helping to create more of an international audience for this book I'm working on.
Charles, I think that Bernie got a very good deal on the honeymoon suite at the Gulag. So
That's right.
He had to go.
Yeah, I mean, that is one angry dude,
Bernie.
I mean, he really is.
You know, he's not going to win.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of those folks you see at the Strand bookstore, which I love the Strand bookstore, but it's kind of the center of progressivism. I think it's owned by one of the senator from one of the Moakley or something like that from.
I don't know anything about.
No, is it Wyman? So somebody from a senator from Oregon's wife, I believe, owns the Strand bookstore, which is a gigantic. Who's that?
That's Bernie Sanders.
That's great.
Actually, this is the guy from Up who wants all the kids to stop messing around on his lawn. And then somehow
funny.
his house gets lifted by helium balloons.
Yeah, I was thinking that we could, another approach you could do is you could do, Ren and Stimpy.
I do.
We could do Burn and Stoopy.
Which would be AOC and Bernie?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is which?
I know.
I guess AOC would have to be Stimpy.
Yeah, Stoopy. But anyway, so we have this conservative treehouse. If we just hit that second link, is fantastic. And we go down a bit. This is not the story I wanted to hit first. Yeah. Whoever this Sundance person is, and it may be more than one person, has got an incredible feel for the details, but makes the point, according to this latest filing, that there may have been 40 FBI agents working on the Russian collusion, delusion, Mueller thing. 40 FBI agents.
That's a lot.
Well, how many people were working on the Clinton Foundation investigation?
0.
Going back in, the one back in 2001 to 5, the one in 2009 where there was a grand jury in New Orleans, the one in 2016, and the one maybe reinvigorated in 2018. I mean, how many people are actually working on this damn thing? But one piece of interesting information here is that apparently the Barr may have now involved the U.S. Attorney in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Also,
so
in this.
What does that do?
Well, it just means that more and more folks are looking at this thing, and I think once you really do go through the exercise of saying, let's, for the hell of it, for shits and giggles, since we're in the FBI and the Department of Justice, why don't we figure out what laws might have been broken here, and let's look at some of the facts, and let's compare the facts to the law, and let's think about calling up a grand jury and having some warrants and having some, let's think about actually prosecuting people here.
We got nothing,
for the hell of it.
Nothing else to do anyway.
You know, we don't have much to do as the Department of, I mean, you know, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
And I think once you start pulling on these strings, what you have, and why I was so, one of the reasons I was so happy to do this project is there's a massive public record out there where it's not simply Bill Clinton, you know, yakking on the campaign trail with Hillary. He and his wife and daughter have had to swear out under penalties of perjury documents that have been submitted using the mail and electronic media across boundaries, both state and national boundaries. So these documents are out there, and if they're not true, while you're soliciting money, not just receiving, you ordinarily are in deep shit.
Ordinarily.
Yeah.
Charles Bailey has an excellent question. How did Bernie's wife get away with this fraud case?
I don't know how she got away with it.
Haven't heard anything about that.
I mean, she's highly qualified to be the first lady under a Bernie administration. You know, they're going to figure out who has all the money, and then they'll put those people in the gulags.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, no, he sent them on a honeymoon in Moscow in
That's
1972.
Right. Here's this Red State Scoop from Catherine Herridge, who now, she used to be at Fox and now she's at CBS. And this is also confirming this idea that Barr is widening the scope of who's actually looking at these messes. And I know that massive files were sent years ago to multiple U.S. attorneys, multiple places inside the federal, state, and foreign governments around the world on this mess. And so the real scandal is not going to simply be, you know, how much frauding and corrupting the Clintons and Obamas and Bushes have done. It's going to be who was impeding these investigations. We're going to figure that out.
I hope so, Charles. I think he's widening the scope of who's going to be involved in doing nothing.
No, I don't think so.
I hope you're right.
And then when we think, this is hilarious,
He's
this fourth link.
widening the Listerine.
Hmm?
He's widening the Listerine.
No. If we look at this fourth link, this is from a certifiable wingnut. You know, I don't know, I shouldn't say this because I've never met the person, but we look down the page here at who wrote this. A little bit further down, you'll see it. Courtney Kube, K-U-B-E. It's probably pronounced Kube or something like that. But anyway, this at 6 o'clock this morning gets published that according to an assessment, you know, if you can't get Christopher Steele and Orbis, what you want to do as the United States is rely on the crack agents from the Estonian Foreign Intelligence Service. You know, the Somalians were not available. The folks down on the island of Malta, they couldn't do any work. We couldn't use our CIA or the 17 intelligence services we pay for. Anyway, let's ask the Estonians to tell us what they think is going to happen. And, you know, I'm sure these Estonians, so I've been near Estonia, it's actually kind of a pleasant place. And actually,
weren't they the first republic to break away from the Soviet Union?
One of the early ones, I forget which was the exact first. But I mean, you know, yeah, all right, here's a new report, that's great, thanks for that, guys, really appreciate it. But, I mean...
Yeah, not exactly the top.
And here's NBC saying, you know what, let's make this a big news story. At 6 o'clock in the morning, let's let Courtney Kube write this story. And so we can reignite the whole. If the Estonians say this is happening, it must be true.
Right. How could Donald Trump not trust the Estonian intelligence agency?
Exactly.
Why is he listening to Putin?
Yeah, it'll be just like, you know, our #1 duty after we finish protecting Ukraine is to protect Estonia. I mean, look, I'm sure there are many nice people in Estonia, and there's probably every reason to cooperate with the Estonians. But the real issue here, I would argue, from the evidence in plain sight, is that the Democratic Party, specifically the Obama administration and people who hoped Hillary Clinton would be the President of the United States, conspired to rig the Democratic primary. They were very happy, I think history is going to show, that Donald Trump was going to be the nominee. In fact, they may have encouraged the idea of Donald Trump being the nominee because they felt they were going to beat him like a drum in the general election with the October surprises that they tried to pull. That's the real story. And how many people, how many foreign governments, allied governments like the UK, the Swedes, and others, how many of these governments got together on the bandwagon and said, oh yeah, we're all in for Hillary. We're all in for corruption. This is fantastic. More corruption, more globalism. Forget localism.
Courtney Kube with some commando or something.
I guess. But And she's got fewer followers than you or I have.
Yeah, but she does have the blue check, which I don't understand how this blue check works, because Twitter, when I asked for one a couple weeks ago, said they're not giving them out anymore. The other thing is, I don't like this retweets are not endorsements. I don't think that's correct. I think if you're retweeting something.
I don't understand what it even means.
Yeah, it's a stupid.
It's probably a requirement of her NBC contract.
I see a lot of people putting that on there. It's kind of a boilerplate, like I'm smarter than you kind of thing.
But since we have, let's stay for a second, since we have on NBC, I would like to give fair warning to Phil Griffin at MSNBC that you're fucking toast. I mean,
that's a fair warning. Like, why,
well,
though?
because he has been a lead trustee of Operation Hope.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Operation Fraud. I mean, I'm amazed they don't try to get in an honorary advisory board of convicted felons. Let's get Madoff, let's get Milken, we can get Rajat Gupta. I mean, it's a transparent fraud, and MSNBC, Phil Griffin as president and CEO of MSNBC has been, in his personal capacity, on the board of this thing.
Is this Courtney Cube again?
Could be.
This was an embarrassing moment where her kid was with her at work.
What happened?
Well,
on
TV she had to like shove him away.
That's too funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, back on Phil Griffin, he is on the board of Operation Hope, which is little more than a personal enrichment service for John Hope Bryant, in my opinion, who's the founder of Operation Hope. And the various trustees who are all each getting something out of this implausible story that somebody who may or may not actually be called John Hope Bryant has dedicated himself to philanthropy from the tender age of 26 with no visible means of prior support.
No, the candy.
Yeah, exactly. Selling candy in Compton.
Business selling candy.
Yeah. And so here Phil Griffin decides he's going to virtue signal and lecture everybody else about, remember MSNBC jumped up into the grill of the Trump Foundation and is all high and mighty about the Trump family, and this idiot Griffin's on the board of a corrupt charity that is supposed to do work only in Los Angeles, but is nonetheless going all over the world, also selling these absurd ideas. I call it crapitalism. It's the opposite of capitalism. Capitalism is not about going into debt. Capitalism is about saving, spending less money than you earn, and using that money to invest and make a return on it. It's not promoting the idea that what you need to do is borrow to go to college, borrow to go to graduate school, borrow to buy a car, borrow to buy a house, borrow here, borrow there, and hope that the asset values go up and hope that interest rates go down. The basic premise of Operation Hope is stupid. And this guy has been on the board of it the whole time. He's induced a lawyer named, I think, Stephen Bryan from memory, not Bryant, who is with a big firm, McDermott, Will & Emery. And this lawyer is like Bruce Lindsay at the Clinton Foundation, has, I think, failed in his professional responsibilities as a lawyer to root out this fraud. He's failed in his professional responsibilities as a trustee, and those do conflict. And here's Griffin, still touting, allowing this idiot Bryant to come on CNBC and other portions of the NBC network. I mean, it's disgusting.
Grifting.
That's right, Phil grifting.
Yeah.
So now on this is a little bit of transition here. This story about China is interesting. I mean, do we believe this latest video out of China, which appears to show people so happy in the detention centers that they're actually dancing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's credible. But, you just can't see the machine guns pointed at these people.
A friend of mine who lives in Hong Kong posted a video of a lady leaving her apartment with two small kids, like wrapped in Ziploc bags. I wonder if I could get some of those kid-sized Ziploc bags. Wrap up some.
But this, obviously it's a terrible situation over there. It could happen here as well. But I think this is past the point of being readily controlled. And now on the heels of the Hong Kong situation, the protests over the way in which Hong Kong residents were being treated by the central government, I think what we're going to see here is this could quickly lead to even potentially toppling of the Communist Party. if they don't get this act under control here very rapidly.
I'll tell you what, if that happens, I'll be convinced that it was a bioweapon. Boy, that would be an amazing
It's a horrible situation, and I feel for the families and people over there. And just to show solidarity, one thing I am going to do tonight, I'm not going to say where, is I'm going to
Chinese food?
Chinese food, absolutely. No, there was a story in the press.
What do you order at the Chinese restaurant? What do you like to order at the Chinese restaurant?
I order all sorts of things, just whatever the spirit moves me like that. Typically a spicy dish and a not so spicy, but I go with a few people. But you know, I think we're going to keep your eye on China, because for many different reasons, the structural approach on trade, the business model of buying all sorts of bric-a-brac out of China that's made more cheaply, produced by now machines over there, this idea of these long supply chains and complexity, all that stuff is going to change, I think, under Trump, and mean that jobs, I think, are going to proliferate back home in ways that even he probably didn't expect. Now, this New Hampshire situation last night is hilarious on many, many levels. And people are going to say, well, Charles, how can you make fun of this? Well, that's what I do. The first thing to understand, for the people who have never listened to Rush Limbaugh, and you'll hold your nose at first and say, Rush Limbaugh, he's an asshole. He's not an asshole. He's a gifted entertainer. And he came up with this idea long ago. He calls it Operation Chaos. What you want to do in states where it is possible for people to cross over and vote in the other primary, you want to encourage, in 2020, you want to encourage Republicans to go and vote in the Democratic primary for the least qualified candidates.
Oh, is that why Buttigieg keeps
winning?
Exactly.
This is a devious. You can't do it at every. I think in Iowa it was because they're trying to rig it, thinking that the deep state could push Buttigieg along the line. But I think the combination of Buttigieg's large belch and the fact that when he tries to say something, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Belch?
He burped in answer to a question. And
what?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh, a number of days ago. But we look here at these results on the Democrat side. Bernie only got 75,000 votes. And bite me down here at 25,000 votes. I mean, he's the guy, remember, who's, listen, fat, let's go out and do some push-ups. I mean,
dog paste phone.
Yeah, I mean, he's really, it's an embarrassment, frankly, that Amy Klobuchar, who's, in my mind, I've got nothing against the color beige, but she's just so beige. I mean, there's nothing that stands out about her. She's not,
Steve Jobs hated the color beige.
Yeah, beige is a nice color, actually. It's certain, and I remember in the house I had, the decorator called it coffee colored, or cafe au lait, but I called it beige. Anyway, she's just beige. She's just like, so what?
Charles, if you charged someone with voting for the weakest candidate here,
you've got so many options.
Well, I was going to say, that might be one of these, like, does not compute. That puts the computer into an endless loop that causes it to kill the crew. Because, like, what? How can we choose?
Right, and you look at this, so you got to, in hindsight, people are going to say, why? You heard that this idiot Sanders is going to show you all of the health records that are pertinent to making the case that he's not going to die of a heart attack next week. So not the heart records. Everything else you could see, right? And
I'm
the guy.
The doctor would even allow him to campaign like this after that kind of surgery. It's certainly not recommended.
Right, and then you have, on top of which you have, members of his ardent staff seriously talking about putting people in gulags and joking about it, and he hasn't disavowed any of that.
But they think it's a vacation, right? They're like, remember Bernie went to that gulag? We should put people there.
That's great. And Buttigieg.
Oops, sorry.
Buttigieg is, I think Bernie has more executive experience running Burlington, Vermont.
Burlington Coat Factory?
No, Burlington, the city of Vermont, the capital city. He was the mayor.
I don't think he could run the coat factory.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so Buttigieg is really, just go home, start a family with your husband. That's all fine. I got no problem with his sexual orientation. It's just he's incompetent. He can't even run South Bend. And as for Klobuchar, legislators generally don't make great presidents. And name the signature accomplishments of this Klobuchar in the Senate. Elizabeth Warren needs to go back to her teepee and just forget about being president. She should really resign from the Senate, in that she got her position under lying about being a Native American. She could go work, do a speaking tour with that idiot Rachel Dolezal, who identified as being black, even though she's white, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Go do that. And Biden, I mean, I'm sorry, your time was back maybe in 1988, but 32 years later, I mean, forget about it. It's not going to work for you.
Laura on Periscope is telling us that Klobuchar is missing her left eye. Is that true?
Well, that's not, I'm sorry to hear that if it is true, but I mean, this isn't, we want people who have got executive experience.
I thought you were going to pull a Trumpism and say, you like people with two eyes.
I'll let you do that.
I don't know if she's missing her left eye. That might have been a joke. I don't know. Sometimes comments arrive and I don't get it.
She's certainly not missing her left leaning.
Yeah. I want to thank John Doe for utilizing Super Chat.
Great.
On Crowdsource the Truth, too. It's a great way to get a comment in.
So let's look at this for a second. This is eyeballing it, as it were. It's 146, call it 200, 250 for all these top, whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, 4.
250 what?
Votes, 1,000 votes. Now, if you go to the top of this, up a little, you can switch it to Republican. Let's see how many votes went for the Republican.
So they go all for Trump.
124,000 just, look, Weld.
Tuesday Weld has a huge opportunity here.
Yeah, but Weld here got half as many votes as Biden.
Who is this?
He used to be the governor of Massachusetts.
I mean, no one's heard of that guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Joe Biden, you should just, get on your Amtrak train, go home. Don't pretend you have a Southern accent. Don't go around and say, I work for Hillary, South Carolina, I have my Biden hot sauce in my handbag. Forget it. You're not going to be president. You're burning your tires. It's just not going to work, man. So, if we go back in to the slides, Jason, if we can.
Yeah, I was just reviewing the comments there. A lot of interesting comments.
Good. There's been on Buttigieg, and I seldom rely on Snopes, which is, I think, influenced by George Soros, but there's this thing that's out there that Buttigieg's father was a dedicated Marxist. So Snopes decided to check it.
Oh.
And I think people can guess that the reason we're putting it up here is because Snopes says it's true.
Oh, Snopes says it's true.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Spoke fondly of the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised. He's part of all these secret societies. He's a rogue scholar.
Yeah, well, and so what happens here is you take Susan Rice's son as one example. Susan Rice's son is a conservative, one of her children. And so sometimes what can happen is that, the child says, whatever my parents said, I'd say the opposite. But I think in this case, it'd be one thing if at age 38 or whatever it is, this guy could say, what I did as mayor, I came in, the city was bankrupt, I brought, these companies in, unemployment is now 2%, everything's fine, got great relationships with, the African-American community, the minority community, people are flooding into South Bend from all over the world. The Indians are putting fat China. You can't say any of that. It's a slum, And it's got, in the middle of it, it's got this Notre Dame University, which is a source. Generally, it's probably like New Haven, that you have a rich university in Yale. And,
New Haven is sketchy.
Well, I know. You have the very bad relations between, all these kids of millionaires and billionaires who go to Yale, and all the connected politicians, and all the money inside the endowment stands in stark contrast to the ghettos lying around it, and it's very tough to make anything work. Then you layer in corrupt unions and corrupt politicians. So I mean, the guy just doesn't have much to brag about, Buttigieg, and yet we're gonna have to listen to him. And so I think his play may be to try to end up being Bloomberg's vice president, but I don't think Bloomberg's gonna make it across the line either.
Oh, but that's why he had the gay ice cream ad, perhaps, to just sort of get everybody ready for that. Charles, we've got people asking how to utilize Super Chat, and there we go. There's another Super Chat coming in right now. People can just within the chat, and this is only on Crowdsource the Truth too, but you can see here in the, just in the lower left-hand corner of the chat is this little $sign, and if you hit that, it allows you to put in a super chat message, which sends some money to Crowdsource the Truth, helps keep the operation going. I do appreciate the super chats, but of course, I don't have any mechanism for allowing people to access the huge and growing library of sponsor-exclusive content that you get on Subscribestar and Patreon. So it's up to people how they choose to do that, Charles.
Good.
Yes.
Good. So we've got a few more to go through here. So then on Bernie, this is hilarious. Again, you know, on MSNBC, somebody was standing outside Sanders and expected to get, you know, so what do you think of Bernie Sanders? And apparently the person said, I'm not going to vote for him. I'm voting for Trump.
Oops.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see a lot of that. I mean, I think inside, I mean, the way it works is I'm sure on the college campuses and the newsrooms around the world.
Yeah, they all hate Trump.
You know, it's easy to hate Trump. But, and they all talk to one another. It's like they all got the same coronavirus going around. And they just don't get it, that there's something really novel about what Trump is doing. He is disrupting a corrupt status quo, leading us to a place where a lot more people are a lot better off. And it's really, you know, looking ahead, assuming things remain on course, it's really going to be fun. November 3rd evening is going to be fun.
Leading up to it is going to be hilarious. This guy looks to me like Ray McGovern a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if that matters.
So then we have actually Van Jones. We brought this up before. I'm not a huge fan of Van Jones's.
But he's creeping over to the pro-Trump side, isn't he?
Well, yeah, because what he's seeing, and you know, you see this, and it's really very condescending. I see a lot of it in Washington Square Park, which is near where I live. There are all these aging hippies will go there for demonstrations. And you know, back in the 60s, it was all about, let's have a teach-in. You know, let's get together and we'll put out fancy T-shirts for people, and we'll sing Kumbaya, and we'll get the Hare Krishna
pens,
yeah, whatever, and you know, and it'll be great for the organizers, and we'll get a government grant, and you know, people will still be down on the plantation, not having the tools they need to have to actually earn money, spend less than they earn, save money, invest it wisely, and you know, stop playing with capitalism and play with capitalism. And you know, you're beginning to see, I see more and more of it myself with my own two eyes. Trump's policies are actually helping put dollars in the pockets more disproportionately of minorities and people at the low income levels inside this great country. And you're beginning to see, you know, when people start talking about are you better or worse off under Trump, particularly amongst African American and Hispanic and Asian and the poorer groups financially, they're all say, wait a minute, this is great. My income, I've got a job, I've got 2 jobs, I've got this, I got that, I've got, you know, potential. And you know, Jones is beginning to see some of this. Where on the other hand, I think people like Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, and Obama for that matter, their strategy is no, we want to create, we want dependence. We want people who need government. We want to make sure people ever more, if we got them dependent on us, then we can force them to vote for us, and we just stay, we pretend we're working, and we just wallow in the misery. We remain merchants of misery. People need to listen to Van Jones, right?
Didn't he work for Obama in some
capacity?
He did. What was his deal with Obama?
I forget exactly. I forget, but he was, you know, he was at one point quite radical. Now, the Republicans are actually beginning to Devin Nunes, and I know you've got issues with Devin Nunes, but he and the House Republicans are beginning now to say, you know, we've had enough of this crap, this bullshit. That, you know, Schiff is not the chairman of the Judiciary Committee any longer. I mean, or at all. He's chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and he's derelict in his duties, frankly, trying to regulate what actually happened with FISA abuse, et cetera. And you're going to see, I think, we're already in February. Everybody understands that the Congress takes the summer off, and then in September you've got the election. So we've got very few months left to try to get anything done. And I think the Trump approaches will continue to try to get stuff done, but let's really invest time, attention, and energy in the project to retake the House, enhance the lead in the Senate, not of Republicans, but of conservatives. You know, if we can get rid of Romney, let's get rid of Romney. Let's get, you know, let's trade people who are reflexively never Trumpers in both parties for people who see that, you know, despite all the resistance, the incredible accomplishments economically and geopolitically that this president has been able to accomplish since January 20th, 2017.
Charles, it's like he's been walking uphill with a pound of weed on his back.
Or no, with Hillary Clinton on his back.
Yes.
And then this, to close it off, this what recently happened stuff, I saw this, I couldn't resist putting it up. Here's a story about somebody working in a church who managed to embezzle $561,000 from a church.
Wow.
I mean, that's a project. I mean, how do you embezzle that much money?
From a small organization.
And what kind of a wedding did she hold for $561,000?
Holy cow.
I mean, that must have been some wedding.
Right.
And how did people not notice any of this?
Right.
So this kind of story, you know, is just unfortunate. And you see, here's somebody being charged 13 crimes. And more, there's a great friend of the show, whose first name is Kevin, who sends me daily now more and more Department of Justice prosecutions for the small fish. This is horrible. The person deserves to go to prison for a long time.
Yeah.
But we can't just at the end of this only put black women and black men in jail for the crimes that the Clintons and the Obamas and others have been committing around in charities. That is not fair. We can't. This is a lot of money, $561,000, but it's nothing compared to the Clinton Foundation.
The thing that's particularly bad about this is stealing from the church. I mean, everybody's going there, practicing religion, donating money. They think it's going to go to like starving kids or whatever, and then this lady steals it to pay for her wedding and her car loan. I don't know. You know, we had Bishop Gators on yesterday talking about Kobe Bryant and the helicopter crash. He revealed a ton of information throughout Kobe Bryant's history about Kobe Bryant being linked to Luciferianism and all of these occult religions, and people were getting pissed off in the comments. They were like, Kobe Bryant goes to my church. The point is, I think most people who go to church are honest people who are trying to live a pious life and all that, but a criminal can slip right in there and be like, see, I'm in the church, I must be honest.
Well, I mean, that's
steal all the money.
I mean, that's the history, frankly, of religion.
Right.
I mean, you do have saints, but you also have quite a few sinners in all the religions.
Yeah.
Including the religions that aren't even religions, especially including those.
Right.
So let's take let's go back. We were in Norway a while back, and let's refresh people's memory. Back in 2008, there's this tender period after an election when you've got a president in Obama who has been elected, but he has not yet taken office. So in the so-called transition period, Obama resigned early, before Hillary did, I think, his Senate seat. He resigned promptly to just focus on getting ready to be president. But in this key period, we had one legal memo done by Kamiki Gibson, and we have the link for people who didn't know about it, basically saying, on the 10th of November 2008, to the CEO of the Clinton Foundation, a lawyer, outside lawyer, says, the foundation, as opposed to its initiatives, which I have not reviewed, okay? So she's only looked at a little bit of the foundation, operates more like a political operation. Ah. Okay, this is in writing on the 10th of November 2008. A lawyer studied this, not just any old lawyer, a Williams and Connolly trained lawyer, a Harvard graduate, cum laude Harvard graduate. And the actual memo that has been confirmed, John Solomon had the Clinton Foundation confirm that it was actually a real thing. And you can read it for yourself, it's quite lengthy. This is on the 10th of November 2008. If we go to the right, on the other hand, 6 days later.
Sorry, John Doe is telling us that Pocahontas is toast and he's loving it.
Good, Pocahontas. You have 6 days later, Valerie Jarrett somehow is able to sign an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, that is all, not a single word of this sentence is correct. A single entity, there is no entity, William J. Clinton Foundation, on the 16th of November 2008. There just isn't. No bylaws, no nothing, there isn't. And it isn't comprised of a library and 7 initiatives. None of the other initiatives are lawfully organized or operated. So none of this is correct. This is 6 days after an internal memo inside the Clinton Foundation, done by a lawyer, is delivered to its CEO. They're negotiating with Valerie Jarrett, who evidently must not be terribly smart. She signs this. Now, how did she do the diligence? Who did she rely upon to check any of this? Because you'd fire every one of those people.
It was Mountain Dew diligence.
Exactly. Then you go up the page a little bit. Then you have, right before, I put this date in red, in February of 2015, and huge shout out to our mate in Australia, or in Asia, Michael Smith. He had this piece, people could read it in some depth. There are a lot of links. This is a memo written in February 2015, before Hillary announces officially for president, and states, in July 2008, so 4 months before these things below are written, the president of Chai,
which is who?
Anil Soni, a man named Anil Soni,
right,
tells the Clinton Foundation that Chai, which had then been part of the Clinton Foundation, had been stealing money, basically $23 million. So, Ira Magaziner, Chai's CEO, and the president of Chai is Anil Soni. So these two people walk into the Clinton Foundation in July of 2008 and say, you know what, we stole $23 million.
Thanks for that.
And so that's why, most likely, Kamiki Gibson didn't review the initiatives, because this is the biggest initiative. So Magaziner knows this, Anil Soni knows this, Bill Clinton knows this, Hillary Clinton likely knows this, a lot of people know this in July of 2008. Then there's the legal memo saying, look, we're fucked. And nonetheless, they say,
mumbo jumbo, Charles.
We got to get Obama in president, to be the president. We got to get him across the line, and he's going to make Hillary Clinton Secretary of Stealing. So, she's got to get across the line too. So if we go down the page, I think that's about it on this page. We then get to, I've got a new title for Ira Magaziner. He's the chief blowhard, and here, Brown, I don't know if you've ever been to Brown University.
No, I don't think I've ever been to Rhode Island.
Well, you're missing. I mean, that's the center of God's universe.
Didn't the governor, beat somebody over the head with a log and kill him?
Well, the first president in America was the president of Providence and Newport Plantations, later called Rhode Island. It was my ancestor.
Oh, wow.
So Rhode Island's a great place.
Why does the story of beating somebody over the head with a log cause you to remember that?
No, because it must have happened later.
John Doe has utilized Super Chat again.
Thank you, John Doe.
Wants me to purchase you a coffee at McDonald's, but I'm encouraging you to not go there.
I like coffee there. So anyway, this is an excerpt from the product of 2 interviews that were done, and you won't be able to use JSTOR here, I don't think. At the library you can, or you create a JSTOR account.
I think I have that from I have a library card.
Well, you don't have to go to it, but if you've already in process done it, we can show people.
It says login. No,
yeah. So if people can do it at their leisure, I just took out the blowhard's early claims, and here's a guy, Mr. Modesty. This is the article in question, the Brown, whatever it's called, of Brown Journal of World Affairs. It was published spring, summer, but when you get into the article, the people interviewed Ira interviewed him in late January, early February 2009. Remember that. Early 2009.
Why is that significant?
You'll see in a second. So we go back, it says, the biggest part of the foundation includes 4 operating initiatives. Remember, Kamiki Gibson did not look at any of the initiatives, accounting for about 90% of the Clinton Foundation. So as a lawyer, what I'm going to do to figure out if there's a problem is I'm going to look at 10% of the thing and hope that there isn't a massive set of problems in the other 90. It's preposterous. And then the guy says, accounting for, this is Magaziner's own words, includes 4 operating initiatives accounting for 90% of the Clinton Foundation budget, all of which I started and run, all of it. That's why my name is not in the 990 for the Clinton Foundation in 2008, because you wouldn't want to, me
Put the principal officer there.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want me to get in any legal trouble, would you? So here it talks about, there's the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative in 30 countries. He started the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, which I believe Bob Harrison would take issue with. He started the shoe salesman, the sneaker salesman Clinton Hunter Development Initiative, and he started the Clinton Climate Initiative. All this stuff is in existence Q1 2009, according to the chief blowhard, Ira Magaziner, who's in the 13 BlackBerry world of flying around the world constantly, too busy to ever answer any questions. But here he is in print multiple times boasting of committing fraud.
They love to do that.
And nobody, would want to say, hey, wait a minute, at the FBI. Let's go talk to Ira Magaziner. He lives in a very nice mansion in Rhode Island. He's got a high lifestyle. His kid's the treasurer of Rhode Island. He's got all these suspicious dealings. He's got a lot of money, a lot of international activities through the operation of a charity. Maybe we should check that out a little bit. Not at the FBI. We don't do that. Or the IRS. Not going to do that.
You got a lot of Star Wars toys to play with, Charles.
Right. So then we get to the Norwegian government decides to make some official points about the Clinton Foundation on the 23rd of May 2016. Now, Jason, I want you to, if you would, hit the link at the top of that page, because we might wonder, why would the government of Norway decide to issue, an internet-based point about
what do you mean
the Clinton? I'll show you in a second. On the 16th of May 2016, some analyst was making a lot of noise about the Clinton Foundation. I wonder who that was. Oh, that was me. And the question is, in the Norwegian government records, in the FBI records, in May 16th, 2016, remember, there's an open FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation. So did anyone contact me from the FBI in May of 2016? No. Afterwards, yes, to see whether I financed Peter Smith. Yeah.
Oh, Peter Smith.
Yeah. But no one from the FBI has contacted me about this since May 16th. But what sort of traffic might there be in the Norwegian government records that people say, holy shit, what is this guy saying? He called GE, he's saying it's a fraud, we've got an election, we're big into the Clinton Foundation with lots and lots of projects, maybe we should check this shit out. And what kind of complaint went through the State Department, to John Doofus Kerry and other people, maybe our US ambassador in Norway there's got to be email traffic inside the Norwegian government and reports and whatever saying, holy shit, I mean, this guy, does he have a point? So we go back into the slide. There should be quotes here. This is all drawn exactly from this link here. This is a Norwegian government thing. It says here, since 2007, the Clinton Health Access Initiative and the Clinton Climate Initiative have been important partners for Norway in the areas of health and forestry and / clean energy, respectively. Now, there was no such thing as the Clinton Health Access Initiative in 2007, and there's never been a Clinton Climate Initiative. But this is the official government of Norway saying, this is our position. We only started on this in 2007, and that the Clinton Health Access Initiative was founded in 2002. No, it wasn't.
Charles, what happened with our friends from the Step Forward policy who had abandoned the executive branch? Have we heard anything more about that in Norway?
Well, yes, the situation in Norway gets ever more heated. I mean, people are looking at these Dumases who run the country and saying, this doesn't work for us anymore. I mean, there's a lot more deplorables, I think, in Norway. And as winter comes to an end here, I think you're going to see more and more people in not just Norway, but across Scandinavia and other countries that are wedded to leveraging the country up to burn money in socialism and bureaucracy, both at national and European and global level. You're going to see a negative reaction to this. So here it says, through its cooperation with an entity that didn't exist, Norway has given 533 million kroner. So conservatively,
what is that in dollars?
It depends on the year.
50 million, though.
Oh, it's between 50 and 100. Call it 75 million. So at some points it's 10, some points it's 5. It really depends when the flows happen. Okay, and then they talk about what they did in Malawi. Now, Malawi is so freaking crooked.
That was one of the first episodes we did.
Right, that the daughter of one of the early leaders was forced to resign, and her foundation's a mess. I mean, to brag about what they did in Malawi is not leading. It's not leading. Why don't you punch right here? Right.
Well, it's advertising to the other criminals if you want to get involved in a real This is where the action is.
And so they're cooperating with the Clinton Climate Initiative, and we're going to get in some depth on this Clinton Climate Initiative, not today, but we say another $51 million for that thing that doesn't exist. And here they say no funding was provided to the Clinton Foundation, CCI or Tribe before 2007. Did I ask about that? I didn't ask about that. I mean, why would you say that? But there must be a tremendous volume. Let's say that's absolutely right. We have press releases from Bill Clinton issued in New York saying that Norway got involved in 2004. We have the book that paperback version of the book that he wrote in 2005 saying they were involved. We have a book that he wrote in 2007 saying they were involved. We've got multiple press releases saying, but Bill Clinton's a known liar. So maybe we'll give the benefit of the doubt to the Norwegian government here. So we go to the next page. Now this is, let's show people an example of this. If you hit this link, Jason. These are the kind of reports that I've grown accustomed to finding, okay? And, we're not going to make fun of the name of the consultant from Baker Tilly, which I think is some kind of accounting firm, Kailas Botbot, who, his parents must have really loved him.
Kailas.
KK Botbot.
But that's something from Star Trek, like it's like the home planet of like Klingons or something.
Whatever. But this thing was published in October of 2009. Okay, mind you, on December 31st, 2009, that same CEO who was really honest, he said, the Clinton Foundation, I got to tell you, Magaziner and I stole $23 million from Chai. Is just the person they say, well, why don't you, since you're so good at stealing and lying, why don't you put an application into the IRS trying to get tax exemption for an entity that doesn't exist on December 31st, 2009, and say that you had no predecessor activities and lie your ass off. Why don't you do that?
Oh, so we should remind people, though, that NORAD is not the North American Air Defense. It's
Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation. And there's a formula for doing is October 2009. You got to have acronyms. You can't say prevention of mother to child transmission of HIV. You got to call that an acronym. You have your Department of Acronyms. PMTCT.
Yeah.
And then you can say, you drop that and you say, well, I'm an expert on PMTCT.
Oh.
And they say, oh, FBI to you. So you go, there's again Mr. Botbot or Mrs. Botbot. So you start out with the 3-page discussion of all the acronyms that are going to be in the report. So if you go to the next page, you got to do that, right? You got to have an acronym.
Lawyers love all this kind of thing.
Well, this is consultants. So you got to have all these acronyms, right? Pages and pages of acronyms. And here's, for people who know Tanzania, I have never been to Tanzania, though I've been nearby. They're doing these projects, it looks like on the seacoast region, on the southern portion, and I don't know what the neighboring country is below. But as a suspicion, that's part of, these are 2 provinces or portions of Tanzania, I think.
They need to buy a vowel, Charles.
And as a guess, there are minerals, there's something around these projects, as a guess, that people are trying to get access to. Just guessing, we'll find out. So you keep on going in here, in this report, and you got background. Look right here. Since July 2005, the Clinton Foundation, a program of the William J. Clinton Foundation. No, it wasn't. Okay? It has never been a legitimate program of anything called William J. Clinton Foundation that was registered anywhere in the world lawfully or organized or operated lawfully. Now, speaking of collaborating, if you're going to work as the former president of the United States for the Tanzanian government while your wife is a senator, you shouldn't be marketing this collaboration as a way to steal money from the Global Fund and from other donors for projects that nobody's going to check anywhere. That's not the smartest thing for you to do as the former president of the United States, unless you're going to use this approach to scare up money for your wife's presidential campaign, which is, again, illegal. So they started on it in 2005, but they say here, beginning in July 2007, the government of the Kingdom of Norway, through its ministry and the Royal Norwegian Embassy, started giving money to this fraud by July of 2007. Now, we have the documents on this, and it's ugly. It's really freaking ugly. So if we go back into the slide, that's the text that I put there. On page 12, they are saying that they decided prior to October 2009 that the second annual meeting, therefore there was a first meeting where the notes on that, where the records on that, they're going to have a review between August and October of 2009. Now remember, December 31st, 2009, they tell the IRS we have no predecessor activities of any type. That is to say that this child, this liar, Anil lying Sony, and the trustees, Bill lying Clinton, they put this thing into the IRS and said, we got the IRS covered. And Obama's going to be president of the United States forever, and then Hillary, so I mean, we do what we want. So where are these records? There have got to be extensive records of how the meeting came together, who planned it, what representations were made, what reports were issued. Where is all that stuff? So go to the next page. Here is a summary of what Mr. Botbot had to say about and his
sounds Indian, Botbot.
He sounds stupid to me. I mean, it's hilarious. There's 9 points that Botbot and his people make, his or her people make about Chai. All right? However much money Chai was supposed to put in, it's not in the financial statements. There's no control over the expenses. We can't use the coding system to track expenses. We don't know what happened to the money we send out into the field. There's a possibility that the money we say we spent, we haven't spent. We made payments to suppliers based on pro forma invoices. Now, have you ever done that? Like somebody says, hypothetically, I'm going to give you a bill about what I might do for you.
And
why don't you pay it?
No.
Why don't you pay it in advance?
Yeah, I have a lot of problems getting people to pay actual invoices for things that had already been done.
Right, yeah. So, and then you say certain expense entries just, were the head office of the Clinton Foundation, not Chai now, the head office of the Clinton Foundation says, just say that you spent this money. That's just prima facie evidence of fraud, frankly. And there's no documentation for any of that. And of course, we didn't comply with statutory payments, which means tax payments were made. And this gives us, these are 9 points they make, all right? And then it says, in general, considering the quality of management of Chai and their commitment to the project, Norwegian's funds are in safe hands. How do you have these 9 points and reach that conclusion? It's ridiculous, right? And so this is a document that came together and was issued October 2009. Okay, this is when you get into this, you have to ask yourself. I didn't know until recently how much corruption is prevalent in Tanzania. Let's hit this link here.
What happened recently that caused you to realize?
I just Googled Tanzania, Clinton, and scandal. I used Ortel's first law, and up popped this story from 2010, November 30th, wow. 2010.
Oh, so Norway has some experience with getting embezzled funds back.
Some of the money back, but this is a project. The Norway had for a long time. It sent tens of millions of dollars to a project to assist, conserve natural resources, and they have to admit that they weren't used that way.
Why do you suppose?
And it's $2 million we're talking about here. And who did this work? The auditing firm of Baker Tilly. We'll hire them as Mr. Botbot's firm. What we do is when we want to get a report that doesn't tell us how bad things are, we hire Baker Tilly. We can't get BKD. They're too busy in Arkansas. And then we don't want to pay for the plane fare or the train, I should say the train fare, the AOC train.
Where is Botbot Accounting located in Tanzania?
Baker Tilly. I think it might be a local firm in Tanzania, part of an African.
So maybe that name is African. They should get a mascot zebra.
There you go.
The accounting. You can fight the tiger.
That's right. I am the tiger.
Fight the tiger or the zebra.
So let's just close out by looking at some important key dates in all this. All right. Mm-hmm. So 2009. Remember, this is a moment in time where, in theory, the Clinton Health Access Initiative exists. Right. It has existed since 2002, according to the bright bulbs who do the diligence for Norway. On the 13th of January, Hillary Clinton lies under oath, lies her ass off, which is a big job, to the U.S. Senate concerning the status of the Clinton Foundation. She just lies, bold-faced lies. All sorts of evidence in the record. Don't worry, I've got this MOU, we'll be protected. No one says, well, wait a second, you haven't actually, you lied to New York State. You represent New York State, Hillary, right? Yeah, so I thought I'd lie to them about the status of my foundation because you're concerned that Bill might use the foundation to steal money to pay for Chelsea's wedding. I mean, you wouldn't want that to happen.
Like that lady with the church.
So what I'll do here is I think I'll lie, and in that way I can become Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. The same freaking day that you're lying to the Senate, you secure this email address, this domain, www.Clinton email, and you're thinking ahead. You know that if you ever get caught, you're going to get dopey James Comey on the case, and he's not going to say, why don't we take a look at the email traffic, say going back to, I don't know, December 31st, 1994, involving any member of the Clinton family and any senior advisor to the Clinton family. Let's look at all those emails. Why don't we look at Ira Magaziner's email? I mean, he was the internet czar under Clinton from 98 till 2000, I believe. So why would the Secretary of State need to get a Clinton email domain on the same date that she's approved to be by the committee to be nominated to the full Senate on the 21st? Why would they need to secure this Clinton email? And how could dopey James Comey say, there's no intent that the Clintons intended to deceive anybody with regard to her toilet bowl email server in Chappaqua and in her mansion down in Washington? There's no intent. I mean, how could you say there's any intent? I mean, she did it on the same day. She's being transparent, open.
Well, and also she's the Secretary of State, sending all of her emails not from an official government server, but from a hidden server.
Right.
How could it be anything other than intent to hide that stuff?
Right. And so then we're leaving out a lot of stuff here, but on the 19th of May, for some reason, Kofi Annan, who's was married when he was alive, to the daughter, I believe, of a very wealthy Swedish business family, the Wallenbergs, he gets appointed special UN envoy to Haiti. Now, remind you, they must have remarkable foresight, because the earthquake didn't happen until January 12th, 2010. So why did Bill Clinton, a former president of the United States, while his wife is the Secretary of State, what sort of approval process went on suggesting that he could be a special UN envoy? Is he under the protection, therefore, and above reproach? Is he UN law, outside the control of US law? I mean, what is this all about? And how is this determination reached? You have Hillary Clinton is clearly conflicted thinking this through. Barack Obama, I would argue, is also conflicted. I mean, who made this call that somebody who had been forced to surrender 2 sets of law license for lying under oath and obstructing justice in January 19th or thereabouts, 2001, that dude should be a special UN envoy? Well, let's send our best and brightest. We haven't arrested Bernie Madoff yet. He was in contention. We'll think about him a little bit later.
No, he wasn't.
No, I'm just making that. Anyway. So,
see, people sometimes don't get it when you're making a joke. They think we're in Moscow.
We're not?
No.
Oh, man. I am so confused. Anyway, on the 1st of June, 2009, just whatever day, 12 days, 13 days after he's made special UN envoy, he probably says, you know what? I'm going to have all this money that might come my way. I wouldn't want it to go through the foundation. So Haiti's not far away from Florida. Why don't I have my people set up an entity in Florida called William J. Clinton Foundation Corporation, which sounds suspiciously like William J. Clinton Foundation, but it's not the same name, and it's not set up as a branch or registering the Arkansas thing in Florida. Pam Bondi, are you listening? It's set up, and prosecutor, it's set up as a special Florida entity, pretending that it is the real thing. This is a classic hallmark of fraud.
What do you mean a special Florida entity?
The correct way to do this is you have the Clinton Foundation. You would have adopted Articles of Incorporation. We've been through that, and bylaws. Trustees would have done that, filed all the reports, done everything lawfully, not had the president lie his ass off and hire an idiot to be your CFO and lawyers who don't give a shit about anything and
these are
get
a lot
BKB.
of steps, Charles.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do any of that. But what you would do is, assuming everything was right, you would say, well, I need to raise money in Florida. I'll just go and fill out the form of registering my Arkansas corporation, which already exists, as what is called a foreign corporation inside Florida. Instead of doing that, they created a new entity in Florida a mirror image of the one in Arkansas, and said, no. This one has a slightly different name. We'll get people to send money to this thing over here, and then we won't consolidate it into the parent. That's how we're going to steal the money that may come to us. One of the ways we're going to steal this money.
Would you say that this is expert stealing or just haphazard nonsense?
No, this is, I think this is, people went after this with a plan. This is a long-standing pattern and practice. Thinking ahead, they've done campaign after campaign. It goes back to the coon dinner in Little Rock, you know, where they have people eat varmints.
Raccoon.
Right, exactly. That's what they call it. It's a bit of New York Times articles talking about the Arkansas coon dinner. And
I don't understand how they can say that.
Right, and that's where Hillary developed the idea of hot sauce. You use the hot sauce on the varmints, you don't know it. Bill laughs about it in his book, Giving.
Oh,
so
giving heartburn.
with all of this, and the fact that you had a senator, now a secretary of state, you're representing New York, beginning January 3rd, 2001, as Hillary Clinton is a senator in Washington, D.C. Only on the 29th of July do you bother to try to register William J. Clinton Foundation with the Secretary of State in New York. It's preposterous that, that New York would jump all over this, okay? So then, remember all the crap that President Trump got for the very poignant moment giving Rush Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Right.
On the 12th of August 2009, Barack Obama gave a stone-cold thug criminal, Muhammad Yunus, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. This is a dude who's now 80 years old. Of course he won the Nobel Prize in 2006. His idea is microcredit. That what you would do is, the reason that people are poor around the world is they can't get loans, and of course they're poor, so they can't get big loans. So we'll get in the business of charities of making tiny, tiny loans to rice farmers and people living in the bush and here and there. And we'll have this big song and dance story about that's doing wonderful things for the local economy. This idiot gets the Nobel Peace Prize. What he doesn't tell people is that in addition to virtue signaling and taking credit for all this, he's stealing money so badly that the Bangladeshi government, which is, probably got a better reputation than the American government at this stage, but the Bangladeshi government decides that this guy is such a disaster that they remove him from control of the entity that he started, for which Norway gave him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Really?
Yeah. And this guy gets, in August of 2009, Barack Obama gives him the highest honor that you can get, that the president can bestow on this straight-up stone-cold fraudster, who, by the way, attorney generals of many states, and particularly New York and California, you need to look more carefully at the filings of Grameen Foundation and the various Grameen entities, which are all blatantly fraudulent.
Grameen.
G-R-A-M-E-E-N.
Nice.
Right? So if we go back in, So then Barack Obama decides on the 22nd of September, even though there is no such thing as the Clinton Global Initiative, they've been holding meetings since September 2005 in New York, without registering the main foundation, without even bothering to create a Clinton Global Initiative, Barack Obama decides to address the Clinton Global Initiative meeting. 7 days later, Bruce Lindsay incorporates in Arkansas the Clinton Health Access Initiative, but doesn't arrange for bylaws to be filed, doesn't arrange for initial directors to come together and adopt these articles. And, because Barack Obama has done such a great job in the scant months he was in office before people were nominated, the nominations closed to get the Nobel Peace Prize, he learns on the 9th officially of October that he's getting the Nobel Peace Prize. Richly deserved. I mean, he's been in office less than a year. I mean, think of all the things he's accomplished.
I thought it was while he was president-elect. He hadn't even arrived yet.
Well, the issue is the nominations closed sometime, I think, in either late February or early March. So he'd been in office for like several weeks. But he'd done such a good job. The market was crashing. Hillary Clinton became Secretary of Stealing, and got to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, let's give him a Super Bowl ring. We gave him got a Grammy. He's got book deals. He's got an Oscar. Give him a Wimbledon trophy. Give him a PGA Tour trophy.
Just have like a room where all that stuff is like thrown in behind the couch.
It's like it's not as bad as the former president of Finland, who I was looking him up. He gets the Nobel Peace Prize in 2008
For what?
And you look him up on Wikipedia, and it lists his honors and awards. And the first award the guy got was an award from the International Society of Promoting Use of the Language Esperanto. That was his first honor.
What?
Yeah, I know.
What is that language?
It was a language that people thought way back when would replace, it would be the lingua franca, the language that everybody would use.
Who's ever even heard of that language?
I have. I had to take it in 7th grade.
Who other than Charles has ever heard of that language, Esperanto? So that didn't go over too well.
Yeah. So
this
anyway,
is the guy?
That's him. No. This is the
Marty Asshattery?
Yeah. The order is in 2006. The thug criminal, now criminal, what's his name? Eunice gets it. In 2007, the biggest blowhard on the planet, other than Magaziner, Al Gore gets it in 2007. 2008, this dude gets it. For economics, though, they say, well, maybe this guy's a good guy. I don't know. But for economics, they give it to Paul Krugman because he's certifiably stupid.
Who is he again?
He's the New York Times idiot who said that once if Trump won, the market would crash, the economy would blow up, there'd be no jobs.
Isn't he married to, who's married to Victoria Nuland?
I don't think it's Krugman.
No.
Yeah. But anyway, so we finish out here. If we go after this Nobel Peace Prize thing, the first state dinner for the leader of India is going to feature in the book, because that was the monumental fuck up. If you remember that, people showed up at the state dinner,
uninvited party crashers,
and got photographed with Biden.
It's crazy.
Listen, fat.
How can they get in there? You would think there's tight security. You can't get into an office building without showing your ID.
Well, but in the thing that's very significant here is that the number of people involved in the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS fraud who attended this Indian state dinner, Representative Rajat Gupta, the guy who went to prison for McKinsey, the number of people who were centrally involved in distributing adulterated drugs, soliciting capital illegally, donations illegally around the world, promoting the business interests of Ranbaxy and other makers of these adulterated HIV/AIDS medicine, who were present at this dinner, is hysterically funny. You couldn't, if you were going to write a movie script suggesting that this historic president's first state dinner, first of all, would be a place that, you want to go? Sure, we'll just walk in. We're not invited, we'll stop by, they must have some extra food. Get that aspect, but in addition, the number of fraudsters who were in the audience preying on this historic occasion. And I bring it up in part because Donald Trump is going to be in India in, I think, 12 days from today. He's going over there for a 2-day trip. Let's hope he doesn't ask for a cheeseburger, but...
yeah.
Anyway, so closing, with all this history that I've now given you, and there's a litany of information out in the public domain. If you just do into Google Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative, and you date restrict it before January 1st, 2010, you'll find articles and studies and whatever, all sorts of things saying the thing in theory may have existed, but on the 31st of December 2009, this guy who confessed to stealing money, diverting money, and the various trustees, you have a senior McKinsey partner, you have a genius guy in the drug business from the Gates Foundation as trustees, various luminaries, Bill Clinton himself. They file this application for federal tax exemption with the department run by Lois Lerner at this point that is just riddled with errors, completely wrong. And because it's Obama time, March 15th, 2010, it's like, you're all in, man. What do you want with this tax exemption? You want a Super Bowl ring? You want 9-course meal? You want some caviar, Cuban cigars? What do you want? Whatever you want, you can have. Meanwhile, we're going to persecute the Tea Party conservatives at the same time. So with that, Jason, we're more or less done.
Yeah. People in the chat know about this Esperanto, Charles.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I should mention here, this is actually in the same time frame, so people understand that we're against fraud, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, independent, you don't care about politics. All of this stuff that we just went through, the same time, remember Bill was involved in Haiti, Hillary Clinton's donor swindled $40 million for a project to provide housing in Haiti. Jeb Bush was temporarily on the board of this thing.
Really?
The Clintons are all over this thing. And somehow this guy who's in prison managed to get special dispensation from the U.S. Now, fortunately, under the Obama administration, they put this guy in prison. But they haven't taken this as far as they need to take it. How many projects like Innovita are there where Clinton donors, Obama donors, Bush donors got special dispensation for projects that made no fucking sense to begin with in the first place, that were run as carefully as the Norwegian project was run in Tanzania, which means not at all? How many accounting firms blessed these frauds? How many lawyers just failed to discharge their duties to either the client or to the profession to refrain from engaging in illegal activity, indeed, as officers of the court, to report potentially illegal activity? So this is just one case study. You could go here, I think, looking at this set of messes, these parasitical foundations. And remember, we had Doug White on for a 3-hour presentation with Fabien. You know, he set up the NYU and then the Columbia Graduate School to help prepare people to run charities properly. Just by looking at these 5 people and the charities they're associated with, you probably could do enough case studies to keep 1,000 people busy producing reports, whether printed out or electronically or whatever, for 40 years, going through all the stuff that's in the public domain. Then imagine what you could do if you actually had the FBI and the ability to go into saying, all right, guys in the FBI, what the fuck were you thinking?
Put away those Legos.
Well, yeah, put those Legos away. What the fuck were you thinking about from February 2001?
Thinking? Wait a minute.
To 2005, when Bill was off in India and Africa, all these different places. You knew where he was. You had he had Secret Service protection. You had the ability to know exactly where he was. You could see the speeches he was writing. He was soliciting money. You did nothing about this while he was under investigation. You know,
that's what they do.
Think what you could do if you wanted to actually drain the swamp by making examples of these very powerful, exalted people who've decided that national laws don't apply to them. They're globalists. They're doing God's work. Don't trouble them with details. Don't ask them any tough questions, because if you do that, you know, they'll get the thugs to put you in prison, or worse.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Charles, a lot of people know a lot about Esperanto. Here, I thought it was a radio station in Grand Theft Auto.
No, it's a language.
You definitely don't get that joke.
I don't.
But Charles, it's been another great episode. You know, normally on Wednesday evenings, we're having the new sponsor-exclusive show on Subscribestar and Patreon, which is High Dive with Lee Stranahan. Lee is a little bit under the weather today, so he's not going to be appearing, but Larry Klayman will be joining me, asking and answering the question, how far will the deep state go to stop President Trump? I know a lot of people were waiting for that the other day. Larry had a little bit of a schedule conflict, so we're able to get him in there tonight. That'll be on YouTube and Periscope and Facebook and all the other channels, but I do hope that people will become sponsors. Visit subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Sponsor the show, even if you're just watching the free shows. Can't keep doing these shows without your sponsorship. So please join us on there. And Charles, we'll see you on Sunday. And you'll be here, so I'll be with you. It'll be Sunday with Charles.
There's a thing.
Otherwise, it's just Sunday. Thanks for watching, everybody. Oh, wait a minute. You had a Just In.
Well, yeah, that was the, we could show people that. That's the imminent...
That got knocked out when the computer froze. Let me bring that back here for a second. It was the imminent what?
Donald Trump's going to India now. I've been to India. I keep track of my travels, so I know these figures. Been there 15 times, and last time I was there for 90 days in a row, which is a long time to be in India.
90 days in a row?
Yeah. Living in the same hotel, more or less.
You lived, so that's good.
Nice hotel. But anyway, they're having, look at this, they're having he's going to do a rally basically in India. If you go down the page, it says here, it'll attend a speech by the leader of the country called "How Are You, Trump?" With 100,000, and he did a rally in Houston where the name of the rally was "Hello, Modi," and so now they're responding with "How are you, Trump?"
Oh,
it's
really?
going to be hilarious. I mean, it's really going to be hilarious. And
wow.
And I can say, I mean, I'm somebody who does not really like crowds. I don't have any, like
Strange
psychological.
to live in New York City, though.
Well, I mean, I don't like to go into, I don't like to go to stadiums. I don't like to go to very crowded places. But
you're not rocking out at the club on Saturdays?
No, I don't do that shit.
I hate those
used to do that
too.
stuff, but
Can't stand them.
Centuries ago I did that. But anyway,
too loud.
Yeah. Well, it's, one of the last experiences there, I was maybe, I don't know, late 30s, with a guy who was maybe 8 years younger or something like that. And he says, Charles, you got to come out to this place. It's fantastic. It's great. You'll never know who you meet. And we were sitting there, and all these beautiful girls and older men and whatever. And
don't they know you from the Hamptons?
Well, it'd be even better. So he said, Charles, you got to come here more often. Again, you'll never know who you meet. And he does this. He goes, Dad?
Oh.
I was like, oh, man.
That is pretty funny, Charles. And with that, I think we will call it a day.
Good.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Oh, yeah, 9 p.m. for the show with Larry tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it.